Hey guys, King of Charmanders here. Today I'll be your judge, your jury, and your analyst. And this is going to be Lugia for Master League Classic. Level 40, not excelled. Unfortunately, Niantic is incredibly lazy. Instead of giving us the glorified Pokemon Coliseum Gale of Darkness version, the hailed black and silver red-eyed destroyer of worlds, and the main antagonist Pokemon of the series, of the game actually, where you get to catch it, and it looks so cool and amazing, and a bad A, super bad mother effer. It's not what you think it is, unfortunately. It's a Lugia with a Shadow Cloud and red eyes. Whoever your designer is should be fired. You suck. We all have been waiting for this one moment. You could have taken a little bit more time to be a little more artsy and release something that's incredibly amazing, and I'm pretty sure you would have made a whole lot more money. You know that's the funny part. They probably would have made more money too. Do you know how many people would... Well, I don't personally know, but I can imagine there's a lot of crazy people out there that would shell out a lot of radars to possibly get a good IV Shadow XD Gale of Darkness Lugia. It was a really cool game, so if you haven't played, I recommend it. But anyways, for mental health reasons, that is the Anger Management Lugia. And when you purify said Anger Management Lugia, no, don't ever purify it. This is what we're looking at. The non-purified Shadow Lugia in Master League Classic, like I mentioned, and there's a few differences. In fact, it's like really close, so let's take a look at it and do a deep dive on this Shadow Lugia. Anyways, as you see here, this is Lugia. Lugia is a Psychic and Flying type. I'm going to go through this really quickly because if you're watching this video, you should probably know what Lugia is because he's been out since Generation 2. And it's a Super Tank of Destruction, super high defense, one of the highest stat products in the game as an XL. In the regular version, it still does just as well because of the fact that it has Dragon Tail. The Dragon Tail buff made it super viable for Open Master League, Open Master League, and it is a really great mon. With Hydro Pump, Aeroblast, its exclusive move, it can do heavy damage and possibly boost. So overall, super great, and like I mentioned, has made its way into a meta, and in a lot of top teams, it actually rose through prominence. Now, will the Shadow version be as prominent? So let's find out. Anyways, as you see here, it double resists both fighting and ground, as well as resisting grass and psychic. However, it has more weaknesses than resistances. Dark, electric, ghost, ice, and rock, which are all very prominent. Well, kind of in a sense, but more for charge moves. For the electric typing, you have the wild charges from Zekrom. From the dark type, of course, you have Baconbird, Yveltal. Ghost types, Giratina Altered. Ice, you have Mamoswine. Not so much rock, but you do have Rock Wrecker from Rhyperior, and you also have Ancient Power from Togekiss. So they're out there. And again, well, with fighting, you do see some fighting mons, like for example, kind of superpowers from Rhyperiors, etc. Ground types, of course, Groudon. Lugia has a great matchup against Groudon. Not so much grass or psychic, so that's why your resistances aren't really seen as much as your weaknesses. So, but it's still really good, just like I mentioned, because the moves were buffed. Super expensive. Any legendary you power up is going to be 100 grand. So don't think you're going to go to a supermarket, go to the dollar store, and everything's $1.25 now because of inflation. Unfortunately, it's still not $1. And when I mean that, you are not going to pay, well, you're going to pay 100 Stardust. So you get a little bit of a discount, but still. Anyways, again, expensive, but this is the regular one. Your Shadow is a little different on the side, so let's take a look how it does overall in the meta. Alright, as I always say, please consider contributepoke.com. Now, as I do my search string here, I will do my little mental health tidbit, as I do with every video, since some of you seem to have liked that. As a practicing and soon-to-be licensed marriage family therapist, one of the things you want to do is be mindful. Now, the thing about Shadow Lugia is locked behind Giovanni as of right now. So, in order for you to get one, you have to do a lot of work to get one. Don't feel anxious. Break that feedback loop. Shadow Lugia is not the XD Gale of Darkness version, so you're not going to get the super cool Black Lugia version. I'm not being racist, I swear. Anyways, you're going to get... It's really regular, and the differences aren't too much, so don't feel that like fear of missing out. Don't have that fear. Break that feedback loop. Take a deep breath, but be mindful as well. For those of you that are playing Pokemon Go, you don't need everything. Sure, it gives you a great like avenue, but if you feel yourself having that anxiety, like you need it, take a deep breath, breathe, and remember, it's actually not that. It's actually very interesting. It's not a must. It's a nice to have, unless you have a very specific strategy. Anyways, here we go. We have Lugia and Shadow Lugia. As you see, the rankings are very, very wonky. Not too much of a difference for level 40. You won't really see the huge difference unless we look at the matrix. But as you see, the ratings are insanely close. In the lead, Shadow Lugia barely outperforms the regular one, and it depends which matchups you face in general. Lugia best functions as if Lugia is great safe switch. I butchered the crap. Safe switch. It's a great safe switch, and it actually safe switch Lugia was great in a lot of top teams for level 40 Master League Classic. I'm trying to like figure out Master League Classic or level 40 Masters. There you go. I'm just gonna say that level 40 Masters. The regular version does function well as a safe switch because you're able to break more shields and you have more of that bulk. Lugia's strength is bulk. When you take away the defense from Lugia, it kind of sucks. So just keep that in mind. And as a closer, Lugia does perform minusculely better, the regular one versus Shadow one. So as you see, it's really close. The question is, which matchups do you flip? Which matchups do you not flip? And does it really matter? We're about to find out. Alright, this is part you've all probably skipped to, the PvPoke.com matrix, because you don't like hearing King of Charmanders talk. I'm just kidding. I try to make things entertaining. I try. Anyways, as you see here, we have Lugia. So I got Shadow Lugia, the standard moveset, and then I got the Hydro Pump just in case. Some of you like running Hydro Pump. I've ran Hydro Pump before just to hit those Groudons and one-shot them at those times, and you also gives you a chance against Melmetal. So it's okay. It happens, but like, yeah, we're just gonna put it in here just for science. We have the Master League meta to the right. Here's a 2-shield. I already ran the sim, and if you look over here, not too much of a difference. So here's the interesting part. In the 2-shield, Dialga loses to Shadow Lugia. Yes, you beat the most powerful and annoying Mon since Season 1 with Shadow Lugia in the 2-shield, which is pretty nuts, by the way. But what happens is that with Shadow Lugia, regular Lugia barely loses, so what you can do is you let it go, and then, or you could just sacrifice in the lead, but Shadow Lugia will convincingly beat a Dialga. So, if your opponent decides to throw a Dialga on you, and they're like, yay, Hail Mary, you see here, they need to shield all, well, they can actually live through one Sky Attack, so it's kind of iffy. If you're the Dialga user, you can actually not shield one Sky Attack. You'll still lose the matchup, regardless. But as you see here, you can force the Shadow Lugia user to use both of their shields. So you can come out of this in the 2-to-1s. So if you do see someone using a Shadow Lugia, yes, you lose the 2 shield, but you can come out if you're with shield advantage. At the end of it, as you see here, they might be able, they should be able to get to another Sky Attack, but if you are willing to eat the Sky Attack, or say like you have a Melmetal in the back or something of that sort, use your Dialga and then you send in whatever to farm down Lugia for like a bajillion energy and then KO it. So for example, if you do a play like this where you give up both of their shields, you send in Mewtwo, you overcharge just a little bit, and then you side strike this Lugia down, and then whatever's in the back row, Mewtwo sweeps with with 1 shield. So that's a strategy you can do. Like I mentioned, it's super. You can live as if you're the one using Dialga in the 2 shield. You can force the 2-to-1, so you'll have the 1-to-0. So that's what it is. That's pretty much one of the most interesting matchups I've seen, along with Extra Drill. Shadow Lugia can defeat Extra Drill in the 2s as well. Just because it's so bulky, you Dragon Tail and run your way through like Swiss cheese, as you see here. You don't even have to, you beat it straight Sky Attack. You don't even have to Aero Blast in those matchups, which makes it pretty nuts. You win the 2 shield, they have to shield you. They shield everything, and as you see here, beats Extra Drill, which is really interesting because Extra Drill in level 40 Masters was prominent as well. Now, in the other hindsight, that's what makes Shadow Lugia pretty nuts in the 2 shield. Those are 2 very prominent mons nowadays, Dialga and Excadrill, and you run through the 2 shield with both of them. So it's really interesting. Or if you're the Dialga user, you use that strategy like I mentioned, and you force the Shadow Lugia user to use both of your shields, and you come out with 1 shield and 2 mons. So pretty dang good if you talk about it. That's pretty dang good of, like, you have a pretty good advantage if you are the one using the Dialga. So just in case you need to know that information, because I'm pretty sure I will foresee, unless you got the Shadow Hundo, a lot of them running around. Anyways, back to the analysis. Dialga, with Giratina, not Dialga, not the Steel Dragon, the Ghost Dragon. As you see here, you have close matchups against Giratina Origins. But I'd be very careful. This is a really close matchup. This matchup basically banks on the fact that Giratina does Shadow Ball you, but it's a super rough matchup. You'll still lose regardless, and it's very rough to play against. So you can try to you can sacrifice Lugia in the lead. It's not a bad matchup, but it's really up to you. As you see, 3 turns can be the difference maker. So if you get Dragon Tails through charge moves, you can possibly just win this scenario outright. But that's only in the 2 shield. So outside of the 2 shield, you will lose against Giratina Origin very convincingly. So however you want to play that matchup, you want to sacrifice Lugia, or if you hope that you get those Dragon Tails through, so you just win the matchup outright and you keep switch advantage. It's really up to you. As you see here, you do beat Groudon regardless, whichever version you have. The regular Lugia does do better against a lot of other things in the 2 shield. As you see, Shadow Lugia will lose against Gyarados, Heatran, Kyogre's, both versions, just because of the bulk you don't have. I'm not sure if this is based off of Blizzard, though. No, it's Thunder. So it has to be, it's Thunder Kyogre, but it beats you straight Surf anyways. Well, actually not in a 2 shield, as a Shadow. So the normal one beats you as a Shadow. You run the sim. It loses with 1 turn. This is what I looked at before. It's really iffy. So if you get 1 Dragon Tail through, you can beat it. But it's very dangerous. So again, it's really up to you on how you want to play this out. So it's a really wonky matchup. Don't bank on Kyogre. You both will beat Landorus. Of course, you'll beat Machamp. You triple resist Machamp fighting types, except you get Rock Slided, so be careful of that. Lugia can defeat Metagross, and the interesting part is with Aeroblast you can beat Mewtwo, but that also depends on you getting both baits and then hitting an Aeroblast. Or actually, no, not an Aeroblast. You can straight Sky Attack. I'm wrong. I looked at this wrong when I did it the first time. So when you do it, you can beat Mewtwo straight Sky Attack with Shadow Lugia in the 2 shield, which is pretty nuts. If they have Ice Beam, or if they don't have, like, Ice Beam, then they're likely going to switch out of this matchup because they lose convincingly and you wall them regardless. So they are running Focus Blast Mewtwo. It's going to be really rough on them. So Lugia should beat Mewtwo outright. I would say play out the waters and wait until they hit the Ice Beam. So, and then you just win straight Sky Attack. So it's really up to you how you want to play it. No real other changes. As you see, Lugia does very well against a whole lot of things. You will beat Zacian here in the 2 shield with either version though, but this one's very tight. So if you're going to use the Shadow one in the 2 shield, as you see, it's a really, really rough and wonky. It's a really, really wonky matchup. So if it uses the close combat play rough variation, it's a very weird matchup. As you see here, Shadow Lugia will still lose play rough, and then it has to superpower you. Like that, I mean, not close combat you. It's a very weird matchup. So that's super close, so I wouldn't bank. You do drop the hero matchup if it's using close combat wall charge. So it's a very rough match. So just keep that in mind. And then if you look over here, you do beat Zarude. You beat Zarude and Zekrom. Just because Zarude, it's going to take a lot to get the Dark Pulse, and you're just super bulky, and Zarude is super squishy, and Zekrom is weak to Dragon Tail. Alright, we did the 2 shield. Here's the 1 shield. So, if you look below here, the 1 shield things get a little more interesting. So, if you look at Shadow Lugia and regular Lugia, if you go through the first half, pretty much the same thing. With Shadow Lugia, you have a pretty convincing matchup against Giratina Altered. Well, if you get land the Aeroblast and then Sky Attack through. However, you will lose against Giratina Origin. If you have regular Lugia, you can kind of play out the matchup, but if Giratina Origin, which has energy, well, probably will have energy and can get to Ominous Wind, especially if it's boosted, it's still pretty hard. Not a hard loss, but it's a very rough matchup. So, in the 1 shield, Giratina Origin gets iffy. But that's not even the most interesting part. So you beat Kyogre, you beat Groudon, as you see Kyogre, Heatran, Ho-Oh, and Landorus, as well as Machamp. Now here's where it gets super interesting. With Shadow Lugia in the One Shield, you can beat Metagross, Mewtwo, Sylveon. Well, you can beat Sylveon with a regular one. Metagross, Mewtwo, Yveltal, which is huge because with Yveltal, normally Yveltal will beat you. If you look over here with Shadow Lugia, you will do enough damage where you can beat it straight Sky Attack. So it's nuts. It's a really iffy matchup, as you see here, because one turn energy will flip it, but generally, it is very powerful. So just even having a chance to beat Yveltal is pretty nuts. So along with that, here's the kisser. If you get Zacian Hero Zacian, which happens to be one of the biggest pains of Go Battle League, Master League nowadays, if you don't have it, that's an impressive win, by the way. 69 seconds, my god, that's amazing. But if you look over here, you have to land Aeroblast, but you still have a chance. So as long as you are able to land Aeroblast, you can win in the One Shield. So just having the win con versus the other way around is really cool. You can't do it with Sky Attack, unfortunately, unless you Dragon Tail through, or if you have extra energy and you can get to 2 Sky Attacks, but you're able to win against Hero Zacian. As you see with the regular one, you have a very convincing loss just because of you don't have the extra damage to be able... Well, it's not convincing, it's really close, but at the same time, it's not outright like regular Shadow Lugia. With Aeroblast, if you Aeroblast 2 shields, or if you have an energy lead, you can come back against Hero Zacian, which is pretty huge. Against regular Lugia, again, it's not super bad, but at the same time, it's like, don't count on it. Because you have to Aeroblast through, but they still live. So if you have chip damage, you might be able to win it. But again, the Shadow Lugia is pretty nuts. Of course, and you're able to beat Zekrom, by the way. With Zekrom in the One Shield, you can defeat Zekrom. So you will shield. As you see here, you shield the Crunch, and then all you have to do is just double Sky Attack, and it's GG's. So Hero in the One Shield, Lugia Shadow is nuts for what it can do. The issue is, remember those matchups I told you about? You don't really need a perfect, but you kind of need a high IV one, so yeah, that kind of sucks. So again, this assumes that you have a Hundo Shadow Lugia, but that's the One Shield. In the One Shield, it's pretty, in the 2 Shield, being able to flip Dialga and Excadrill is pretty good, but in the One Shield, being able to flip Mewtwo's a big one. In the One Shield, and having win cons against like Hero Zacian, etc., makes Shadow Lugia pretty interesting and well worth to get from your research. Alright, now we got the Zero. So in the Zero Shield, as you see here in the closer, it's generally the same thing. Like, I don't even need to tell you what you beat just because it's so... There's one matchup that's really interesting, though. So as you see, again, you generally... Lugia and Shadow Lugia in the closer, not too much of a difference. However, with Aeroblast damage, Shadow Aeroblast damage, may I interest you in the ability to beat Hero Zacian with close combat and play rough. So if you have a CC, if you go against CC, play rough Hero Zacian, you can one-shot it with Aeroblast. You don't even need a boost, you just one-shot it with Aeroblast. So you take out like 70% of its HP, so it's pretty nuts. So it's really good for the closer. Regular, you can't do that, just because you don't have the damage. So unless it's already hurt, which in most, but yes, Shadow Aeroblast is pretty nuts. You do lose against Zekrom and Zarude, but they're pretty close matchups. If they can wild charge, you're pretty much dead anyways. Of course, when you give Lugia shield advantage, as in the 1-0s, 2-0s, or 2-1s, it goes to town. Nothing really notable flips in this scenario. Generally the same thing, just because the matchups are so close. Again, 478, 425, that it's not really like, don't count on it. Just know that Lugia with shields is strong. So, and of course in the 2-0s, it beats the entirety of the meta except Magnezone. You're probably not going to see a Magnezone in Open Master League. Just putting that out there. That's why I'm not worried about it. But you generally beat everything else. If you have shield advantage, pretty close to the 2 shields, you're still going to run through a lot of things if you have shield advantage. But of course, 2-1s is kind of a little iffy just because there's certain scenarios. For example, the opponent might have more energy. You won the lead outright. There's a lot of other factors into it. But generally, if you have shield advantage, again with Lugia, you do incredibly well. And not surprising, because Lugia is incredibly powerful, even as the Shadow. So, with shields, Shadow Lugia is pretty nuts. My opinion, probably best used in the lead, just because you're able to take out Excadrill as well as Dialga. Pretty nuts at how powerful it is, right? And that's GG's. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Shadow Lugia is a monster. It's absolutely destructive. And again, like I ranted in the first section of this video, it's really freaking sad that it's not the XD Gale of Darkness version. Because it would have been really cool, you know, if your artists put a little more effort, Niantic. You know, we might actually, you know, it's Niantic though, you know what I mean? Should me, you, or any other community really expect more other than the majority of content creators that will lie to you just so that you keep playing Pokemon Go, even though it's a really unhealthy game? But I'm a hypocrite because I still play it, but I love analysis, so here I am. But in an analysis standpoint, you should have really just shelled out the extra budget. Seriously, y'all killed out Harry Potter. You could have put the extra art budget so that you can put XD Gale of Darkness Lugia in the game. Would have made you more money, like I mentioned. Would have made you more money. So, just putting that out there. Shadow Lugia is cool. It does have a lot of interesting matchups in the 2-to-1s. Is it worth really stressing over it? Not really. You would need a perfect or close to a perfect for the matchups that I mentioned. So, if you're rolling the dice, it's kind of iffy. And even then, like I mentioned, it's a dice roll. It's a gamble. Shadow Lugia is if you went to the ice cream shop and they didn't have your favorite flavor, or no, if you went to the ice cream shop and the one flavor you want is not there, which would be absolutely terrible, right? And what I mean by that is that it's not the XD Gale of Darkness version. And if you went gambling, which is basically what you do when you try to research or you raid, you are gambling for perfect Shadow Lugia. Or close to I think a 98 would probably do, to be honest with you. I don't think there's any break or bulk points really in there that makes it really convincingly, just because Shadow Lugia, when you have something super bulky with a high stat product, everything can be super close. So, again, it's really, if you do get that Shadow Hundo, you are lucky. I'm jelly, very jelly. Not as jelly as Jellicent, because Mr. or Mrs. Pringles, depending on what flavor it is, I will like, but I will be very, very jealous. Anyways, if you do get one, congratulations. But yeah, Shadow Lugia isn't worth stressing over. The regular version, in my opinion, will still do better just overall because you'll expect it more. If you watch this video, you know the ins and outs of if you face one. Just to put that out there, if someone's using a Shadow Lugia and they match up against you in Go Battle League, look to the top right, look at the CP. If it's not a perfect, you feel confident you can run through it, like in the matchups I mentioned, just do it. But again, it's really up to you. Hopefully you do get one, and hopefully you guys are enjoying this season because it's almost over, and I'm more on my progress later. Anyways, you guys have a wonderful day. If you do me a huge favor, please like and subscribe. It's totally free. All you have to do to subscribe is go to the mouse, put your mouse on the bottom right. You see that little subtitle pops up. Put your mouse on it, subtitle pops up. You can use stuff from there. All my current subscribers, I really appreciate you. May all your lucks and all of you get Shadow Hundo Lugias. Good luck on your Go Battle League sets, and I will see you guys on the next video.